The photograph was taken in Madrid, and nobody in that room realized they were looking at a future headline disguised as a fashion shoot. Nobody understood that the girl standing beneath the Spanish sunlight in an oversized denim shirt and a tilted straw hat was about to become one of the most quietly significant stories in modern tennis. At that exact moment, there were no trophies beside her name. No Grand Slam quarterfinals. No top 50 ranking. No major title. Just a 20-year-old Filipino player with a racket, a dream, and a face that one of the oldest magazines in America somehow believed belonged on its cover before the rest of the world had caught up. That decision confused people inside the tennis world almost immediately. Why her? Why would a publication built on nearly 2 centuries of royalty, aristocracy, philanthropy, and high society suddenly choose a young tennis player who had not yet proven herself on the sport's biggest stages? What could they possibly see that the rankings could not? And maybe the more dangerous question was this: what happens when the world starts treating someone like a star before they've actually become one? Because that kind of attention can build a career, or destroy one. To understand why this story matters so much, you first need to understand the magazine itself. Founded in 1846, Town and Country was never a sports publication. It did not build its legacy covering athletes or tournaments or locker room drama. For generations, it documented a completely different universe. Old money families, European royals, cultural elites, Hollywood icons, philanthropists, the kind of people who attended galas instead of press conferences, the kind of people whose names carried weight long before social media existed. And in nearly 180 years of existence, the magazine had never once placed a tennis player on its digital front cover. Not once. Until August 19th, 2025. And when that streak finally ended, it did not end for a Grand Slam champion. It ended for Eala. That is where the tension in this story truly begins. Because lifestyle magazines do not usually gamble on potential. They wait for proof. They wait for the safe moment, the obvious moment, the championship moment. When Sloane Stephens started appearing in major lifestyle publications, she already had a US Open trophy. When Coco Gauff became a crossover celebrity, she had already broken through on the sport's biggest stages. When Naomi Osaka began dominating magazine covers, she already carried multiple Grand Slam titles in her resume. That is how the industry works. You wait until the risk disappears. A cover shoot costs money. Promotion costs money. Visibility costs money. And if the athlete fades away before becoming a real star, the publication looks foolish for betting early. But someone inside Town and Country looked at Eala in the summer of 2025 and ignored all of those rules. Picture that editorial meeting for a second. A 20-year-old from the Philippines. A former junior standout. A player trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. Talented, yes. Promising, definitely. But nowhere near global superstardom yet. And somebody in that room still said, put her on the cover. Not later. Now. That choice turned the entire story into a ticking clock. Because once the cover went live, every single tournament Alex played over the next year suddenly mattered more. Every win became evidence that the magazine had seen the future correctly. Every loss became ammunition for critics who thought the publication had overreached. The pressure changed immediately. And the terrifying thing about pressure is that sometimes it arrives before you're ready for it. At the time of the shoot in Madrid, Eala was still building herself. She was respected inside tennis circles, especially among coaches and analysts who understood how complete her baseline game already looked at such a young age. But outside the sport, she was still relatively unknown. Casual audiences did not yet understand the scale of what she represented. Because Alex was not simply another young tennis player trying to climb the rankings. She was carrying the hopes of an entire country that had never truly had a global tennis superstar before. Every time she walked onto a court, Filipino fans followed. In Auckland, in Melbourne, in Dubai, in Miami, in Birmingham, in Berlin. Flags appeared in crowds thousands of miles away from Manila. Filipino communities organized watch parties in the middle of the night just to see her compete. And yet, even with all that support, there was still no guarantee she would actually become the star the magazine believed she could be. Potential is fragile. Tennis history is filled with players who looked destined for greatness before injuries, pressure, inconsistency, or simple bad timing pulled everything apart. That uncertainty hung over the cover like a shadow. Then came March 2026. Indian Wells, the desert tournament that players often call the unofficial fifth Grand Slam. Under the California sun, Eala produced the kind of run that finally forced the tennis world to stop treating her like a promising story and start treating her like a legitimate threat. She reached the round of 16, becoming the first Filipino player in history to accomplish that feat at the tournament. Suddenly, the cover from months earlier looked less reckless. Still bold, still risky, but no longer ridiculous. And town and country noticed immediately. They published another feature following her run, which revealed something important about the original decision. This was not a one-time publicity experiment. The magazine was actively tracking her ascent in real time. They were invested in the story now. But even then, skeptics remained unconvinced. A round of 16 appearance is impressive. It is not immortality. It is the kind of result that makes people lean forward slightly, not fully stand up. So the pressure stayed alive. Then came the grass season. Historically, grass courts punish inexperienced players. The surface is faster. The bounce stays low. Movement becomes awkward. Timing becomes unpredictable. Careers often stall on grass instead of accelerating. But Eala kept rising anyway. At Eastbourne International, she surged all the way to the final. Suddenly, she was proving she could succeed on the sport's most unforgiving surface. Again, though, there was still no trophy. A final can feel crueler than an early loss because it means you were close enough to touch the finish line before it disappeared. The cover still hovered in the background, waiting, watching, demanding resolution. And then June arrived. The Birmingham Open. Grass court shining beneath an English sky. Alex reached another final, this time against Czech teenager Nikola Bardunkova. The match began badly. She lost the opening set. And in sports storytelling, that moment matters more than most people realize. Because a dropped first set injects doubt directly into the bloodstream of a narrative. Suddenly, everyone watching begins asking the same question. Maybe the dream ends here. Maybe this is the moment the pressure finally becomes too heavy. But Alex refused to let the story collapse. She fought through the second set, then the third, then the championship point. And when it was finally over, she had won the first major professional grass court title of her career. Her ranking climbed to world number 33, the highest of her career. And somewhere inside the offices of town and country, that Madrid photograph stopped looking like a gamble and started looking like prophecy. But what makes this story genuinely powerful is not just the results. It is the timing of the words Alex had spoken before any of those results existed. Back during the original cover interview, before Birmingham, before Indian Wells, before the ranking surge, she said something simple. The only thing I can give back to my country is to inspire. At the time, it sounded hopeful, aspirational, the kind of quote young athletes often give during magazine profiles. But after the title runs, after the viral celebrations, after Filipino fans began flooding social media with emotional tributes and national pride, the sentence transformed completely. It stopped sounding like hope. It started sounding like a promise already being fulfilled. That is the eerie part of this entire story. The words never changed. Reality simply caught up to them. And just when everything seemed ready to settle into a perfect rise-to-glory narrative, tennis reminded everyone why it remains one of the cruelest sports in the world. 3 days after winning Birmingham, Alex stepped onto the court at the Queen's Club Championships in London. Round of 16. Opponent, Iva Jovic. The result was brutal. A 6-2, 6-2. Straight sets. The grass court winning streak vanished in barely over an hour. No dramatic comeback. No heroic escape. Just a sudden, cold reminder that momentum in tennis is temporary. And that is where the story becomes more interesting than a simple success narrative. Because the cover did not protect her from failure. It never could. A magazine cannot save you from losing. It cannot soften defeat. What it can do is magnify everything. Victories become bigger. Losses become louder. Pressure becomes heavier. The spotlight does not disappear after defeat. It keeps burning. That is the real risk of being identified as a future star before your career is fully formed. Every stumble suddenly becomes public property. And yet even the losses could not erase what people inside tennis were already beginning to see. Months before the cover shoot, Barbara Krejcikova, the reigning Wimbledon champion at the time, had faced Alex and walked away convinced she was watching the future arrive early. Krejcikova described her as someone smashing the ball and cleaning the lines, calling her part of the next generation and predicting she would become extremely good within a few years.
Think about how fascinating that is.
A Wimbledon champion and a luxury magazine editor operating in completely different industries looked at the same young athlete within weeks of each other and arrived at nearly identical conclusions. That kind of convergence rarely happens accidentally. It suggests there was something about Eala that statistics alone could not fully capture yet. Something visible only when you watched her closely. The editor behind the cover, Emily Burek, later posted on Instagram calling the feature a dream project and celebrating the fact that Alex became the publication's first ever tennis digital cover. That matters because it reveals the emotional conviction behind the decision. This was not corporate strategy disguised as art. It was belief. And the deeper you examine the story, the more historic that belief becomes. Because Alex was not simply another rising player entering celebrity culture. She was becoming the first Filipino tennis player ever represented at that level of American luxury media. No Filipino man. No Filipino woman. Nobody before her. That is why the reaction back home exploded the way it did. The cover was not treated like a sports feature. It was treated like a cultural milestone. On Alex's Instagram, tens of thousands of fans flooded the comments with pride, emotion, and disbelief. Many admitted they had never followed tennis closely before she arrived. Others talked about what it meant to finally see someone who looked like them represented inside spaces that historically excluded people from countries like theirs. And that is the part rankings cannot measure. You can lose a match in straight sets and still permanently shift the imagination of an entire generation. You can fall short at Queen's Club and still inspire millions of people to believe new possibilities exist for them. That is bigger than tennis. By now, the story had expanded beyond sports entirely. Town and Country continued building its modern tennis identity through features on players like Iga Swiatek and Mira Andreeva. But Alex remained one of the defining names in that evolving vision. And maybe that is the clearest proof that the magazine's gamble succeeded. Not because she won every match, not because she became perfect, but because she became unforgettable. That is the true purpose of a cover. Not prediction, recognition. A way of telling audiences, pay attention to this person before the rest of the world catches up. And looking back now, it is difficult to argue they were wrong. Because within 10 months, Eala transformed from a promising young athlete into one of the most emotionally resonant figures in international tennis. She reached historic milestones for Philippine sports. She climbed the rankings. She captured titles. She inspired crowds across continents. And she carried all of it while still learning how to survive the brutal emotional volatility of professional tennis. Which is perhaps why that photograph in Madrid feels so haunting in retrospect. The oversized denim shirt, the tilted straw hat, the soft Spanish sunlight, the expression on her face before the pressure became overwhelming. Before expectations multiplied, before millions of people began seeing themselves in her journey. It was not a coronation. Nobody crowned her champion that day. It was something more delicate than that. An introduction. A frozen moment captured before the proof existed. And maybe that is the most powerful part of this entire story. Sometimes belief arrives before evidence. Sometimes someone sees your future before the scoreboard confirms it. Sometimes a magazine built on 180 years of tradition looks at a young Filipina tennis player with no titles and quietly decides, she belongs here. And then, slowly, painfully, beautifully, the world begins discovering why.